Are we all excited?
Yeah.
Very. Yes, good. So we're here today with my co-host, Mr. Paul Richards. Say hello, Paul.
Hey, David.
Thank you. And my two guests from TalkTalk Business, headline sponsors of the event, Mr. Richard Thompson and Paul Smith. Guys, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Tell me, what is it about Channel Live that keeps TalkTalk coming back?
I think it's just, it's a phenomenal event and we're absolutely delighted to be sponsoring it again, and it's just a great environment to meet partners, meet existing customers, engage with some prospects, but have some really, really good conversations. I think it's just a superb event, so we've been here for a number of years and we'll continue to do so. Okay,
so obviously headline sponsors last year as well.
Yep.
It's been an interesting 12 months in the market as a whole. Do you want to give us what's TalkTalk's take on that last 12 months?
I think it's been quite a transformational year actually this year. So I took over from running the partner division about 12 months ago, and over that period we've seen some quite fundamental changes in the way that our customers are operating and some of the wins and the whole landscape as a whole. We're seeing a significant move towards higher bandwidth services. So we're seeing a lot of gig uptake. We're seeing people really, as the cloud explosion kicks in, as applications get more and more taken up by customers, we're seeing that demand for more and more bandwidth. So we've definitely seen that movement. I think we've definitely seen a transition on voice and people sort of generally, I think, waking up to this 2025 switch off, which I think it's always been something that's out there in the distant horizon, but partners I'm sort of engaging with are really sort of waking up to the fact that they're going to have to do something about it. So those SIP conversations are definitely coming into play.
There's still a few naysayers out there, though. You come across these people? No, it'll never happen.
I know, but I think it's one of those things that it looks so far away, therefore I don't need to bother with it. But the reality of it is you've got to probably face into it now. And I think OpenReach have been doing quite a good program activity to sort of raise awareness around that, and I think their roadshows have really sort of brought that to life. But we're having a lot of really good conversations now with customers around how do we generally face into that. So I think on the data side, it's very much towards high bandwidth, really facing into that 2025 switch off, and then that's sort of wrapped around. There's a huge amount of commercial change and regulatory change that's kicking in the market, which I think is quite complicated for our partners and for this market to really get their head around. So, a lot of us, us as a team, have been very focused around how do we sort of genuinely be that trusted advisor, how do we take our partners through that journey, because there is quite a lot of change actually.
And I think we're seeing a lot of investment in the market as well. A lot of PE funding coming in, a lot of M&A activity, which is really exciting. But also, if you look at kind of the move to full fibre, some of the investments that are going on, there's 1.5 billion that we're involved with M&G Prudential. There's lots of people going out there, and it will really change the landscape. So I think it's quite an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Paul, you're not new to TalkTalk, but no. You've transitioned into a new position in the channel team. Is that correct?
So Richard mentioned
about that.
There's been quite a few changes. So Richard led a bit of a restructure of the team in April this year. And as you say, I've been with TalkTalk for 14 years, been with the channel for about 12 of those years. But I took on the role of head of reseller and managed service providers. And that was all about lining up with our customer needs. We tended to serve partners in a fairly similar manner. So this allows us to kind of really leverage our pre-sales teams, our bid management teams, and actually get a little bit closer to some of our partners' strategies. So it's really exciting to have that focus and take on that new role.
So Paul, with the telecoms channel, it's evolved massively in the 20 years I've been involved. So the traditional fax resellers, copier salesmen coming in, setting up telecoms companies. And then we had the birth of UC. And now we've got the integration of the MSPs and those that are in the vendor space from an IT side. How much have you had to change your business model and structure to support those clients?
Well, I think you're right. So when you look at the managed service providers, the bulk of their business isn't connectivity, which is obviously core for TalkTalk as a kind of a product type. So it's actually trying to make it really easy for them. So, the thought that an Ethernet might take upwards of 6 months to go in is quite a scary prospect for those partners. So it's all about giving visibility to kind of what category the circuits might be, how we help their sales teams sell, so how we get involved in key bids and support them. Because it's never going to be 100% of what they do, but still 10 to 20% of what they do is quite meaningful.
There's a huge amount of investment then that must have to come from TalkTalk to help educate and market.
Eye-watering investment, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we've just expanded our team by 25% in terms of pure physical headcount. We've created a new desk-based graduate team so that we've got that sort of two-tiered account management structure into partners. I mean, Paul sort of hit the nail on the head really with, I think we're having to go to much more of a sell with kind of model. So I think carriers traditionally have probably just delivered very much a frictionless service. You buy and interconnect, and it becomes a commodity. Whereas with the market being so competitive, we have to go shoulder to shoulder with our partners to go out there and win business. And that's an easy thing to say, but to actually make that happen and to do is very, very different. So in Paul's world, we've tried to create this whole structure where it is a sell with proposition, support in terms of the whole bid management, the whole pre-sales, the whole two-tiered account management structure. It's about, how can we go out there and collectively win together? And that's been quite a step change for us actually as an organisation.
How has the partner, your partner community responded to that sell with message? There's always been a bit of mistrust in the channel about who you work with, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, we're all going to have to be a little bit more collaborative, I think, going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing the types of bids and opportunities. I mean, we're working on. Really interesting. We're seeing a lot more public sector opportunities come up, and we're seeing what I would call sort of traditional markets that maybe are owned by one or two big established players actually being addressed by a much, much broader suite of partners that traditionally might not have been able to get that foot into that door. And I think they need the backing and support of a carrier in certain circumstances. They add 99% of the value, but we've just got to. We can play a role in that in that positioning, and it is, as you say, it's becoming a lot more collaborative in the way that you do things. Just giving out a rate card or a pure price point is not how we want to do business anyway.
And I think thus far, I've seen it being really positive. The fact that you take the time to say, well, what bids are you working for, and how do we support you with that? Where do we need to get to commercially? What does the solution look like? And they're good questions to be asking, and I think it feels quite refreshing that we're taking the time to have that level of interest. So it's been well received, I think.
There's a bit of a TalkTalk takeover in the seminar areas, where today in particular, we've got 2 headline slots with Lance and guys going head to head, and then tomorrow you've got Pete talking about the new opportunities and the new wave of connectivity sales, and that forms a really important part of that side of the channel that are still wary of data connectivity and how important that is for them to keep selling more feature-rich services that go over the top. So from that education piece, how are you finding getting that message out to the channel?
I think, again, it's interesting. A couple of years ago, you only had a very limited number of options within your kit bag that you could sort of sell from a connectivity perspective. If you look at it now, you've almost got too much choice. Yeah. And it's actually quite, if you're not a techie, and I'm not a techie, but if you're not from a technical background, it's almost quite difficult to understand what technology should be applying to what scenario. And I think what we're trying to do is just demystify all of that, base it on the end customer's needs, and then try and work with our partners to really provide the right solution for the customer needs. And whether that is the explosion that we're seeing in FTTC, there's certain commercial movement that we're seeing in that market that's probably going to drive a big uptake. FTTP is quite an interesting dynamic with all of the investment that sort of Paul's talking about, not just from us, but from other players in the market. And I think we play a role in sort of educating and working with our partners to sort of support their customers. Because if you get it wrong, you're going to get it wrong commercially, and you're probably going to oversell, I think, in a lot of scenarios.
And I think connectivity is evolving a little bit. Some of those players now understand that the connectivity's got to be right, or the solutions they're putting over the top don't work. So we're having more and more conversations about resiliency and where the fibre actually goes and how it. So it's becoming a more in-depth, more intelligent conversation, and it's really about understanding, well, what is the network and how's it plugged together and where can I get access to it? So it feels like it's expanding as a conversation, because the importance of getting that connectivity piece right is absolutely critical. The moment you lose that, all the things that we're used to accessing day in, day out, you just can't get to them.
Yeah,
it all slows down.
We're not going to be we're not getting less options, are we?
No.
We're only going one way
Yeah.
on this front, and for partners, I think it's a tough gig trying to get your head around all the options out there.
Yeah, and partnering with somebody that you trust and is an expert in that field. I mean, we've been very open to the market. We want to be brilliant at connectivity, and actually all of that really broader portfolio of services we could sell, that's where a partner's going to add value, and that's where they're going to focus. But you've got to get that plumbing, that infrastructure right, so that all of the applications that you're layering on work, and it's got the right SLA, the right level of resilience, and we've just got to sort of educate and work with our partners to sort of train and upskill in that area.
So what are we going to see from TalkTalk over the next 12 months? What should we be looking out for especially?
Well, we're talking today, we've got a number of things that we're going to go through, so we would encourage you to come to the stand, have a chat with us. We've got some very interesting commercials around SIP. So that discussion, that move towards the next generation voice, come and have a conversation, because I think we've got some quite innovative commercial propositions in that space. We're trying to really, over the next 12 months, add value against that core offering. So we've got things like mobile backup, enhanced monitoring solutions, cloud interconnect services, second supplier options on some of our connectivity ranges. So, again, come and have a conversation with us, and we can sort of walk you through that. But we're really excited. We're currently the market leader on broadband in terms of market share, fastest growing Ethernet provider. It's all pretty good.
Come and have a chat with TalkTalk.
It's what, sorry?
Come and have a chat with TalkTalk.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, lovely. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the session now. I thought we'd have a bit of fun.
Go for it.
Can we have a bit of
Yes,
fun?
please.
A quiz.
Great.
How do we feel about quizzes?
Up for it?
Well, you're about to
I'll
find
tell
out
you in a
how
minute.
feel,
Yeah.
Beautiful
prizes,
smorgasbord of
sir.
prizes.
Exactly.
What have you got your eye on, Paul?
What's that? Was it grow your own unicorn? I think.
Okay.
Yes. Not for me, obviously.
So we've got a lot of choice here. My favourite one. I'm going to give you my favourite question.
Okay.
When was Nintendo founded? Was it A, 1889, B, 1909, C, 1929, or D, 1949?
I would say 49.
Yeah, it has to be.
It's A, 1889. I couldn't
Really?
believe that either.
No.
Apparently
That's
they made
unexpected.
some Hanafunda cards, whatever they are, a Japanese game, apparently.
Okay.
So yeah, long history. So that's unfortunately you haven't
No,
got yours
no
right,
unicorn.
But
Got your BFA?
let's choose a prezi. How about a back scratcher? Do we need a back scratcher? Do we need
Yes, you always need a back scratcher.
Go on.
Thank you.
Help yourself.
I'll
Help yourself.
take
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us
Thank you.
today.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.